Hi, this is Tracy Bevington. I'm the owner and founder of Pacific Marriage and Family Therapy Network. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm here today to talk to you about telehealth, the pros and cons of telehealth, and how you can see a therapist now. As before we get started, I would like you to please take some time to make a comment. Let me know you're here. If you have any questions or comments at all about anything that I'm talking about or any kind of question at all, please note it in the comments. Also note that in the on the top underneath the kind of description, you can link to join our newsletter. You can also click a link to contact us. And if you're joining us, please don't forget to check your volume. Make sure that your sound is turned on and your sound is turned up. I think it defaults to transcription for some reason, but there is sound. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to do is tell you all or explain what telehealth is. Telehealth is a funny word for seeing your therapist over video, text, email, anything electronic. So like like electronic. So when we think about telehealth, it's about connecting remotely with a therapist or any other health provider. This is not just for therapy. Many other medical doctors, psychiatrists, all kinds of doctors are now doing their sessions over telehealth. Nearly every adult in the United States has a cell phone that is a smartphone. So having a smartphone means that everyone has access to seeing a therapist. For the sake of our discussion today, I'm just going to talk about therapists. Although, like I said, medical physicians, psychiatrists, many other clinicians also use telehealth. I'm only going to talk about MFTs and therapists. So not everyone has access to traditional therapy. Traditional therapy is where you have to you have to pick a therapist, you have to go into the office, you have to park, you have to find the office, you have to find a therapist that's available. So with telehealth, none of that is a problem because you're just going to have a phone call or something like a Skype session. It's not through Skype and it's not through FaceTime. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Or it could be through a HIPAA compliant email or text service. So you can access your therapist or take an appointment at any time. It's really, really easy. Now, the most powerful benefit of telehealth has to do with the ease and convenience. By improving the access and the convenience, we can help significantly more people than if we had to have everyone come into the office. So it's a really wonderful way for clients and therapists to connect and to get a lot of really good work done without having to drag yourself out, go to the office, find parking, pay for parking, etc., etc. So next, I'm going to talk about the some questions that come up around telehealth and the pros and cons of doing telehealth. Before I get into that, I just want to reintroduce for any of you that are joining us late. My name is Tracy Bevington. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and the owner and founder of Pacific Marriage and Family Therapy Network. We are a group psychotherapy practice and we have offices in Sherman Oaks, Santa Monica, and Manhattan Beach, and we have 15 clinicians that can help you. We've talked so far about what telehealth is and given some examples of what makes it such a powerful and amazing resource that is being severely underutilized. If you are joining us, please leave a comment. Let us know you're joining us. Tell us where you're joining from. And if you have any questions or comments at all, please feel free to leave them in the comment section. If I don't get to them by the end of this segment, I will certainly get back to you at some point. All right, so first I'm going to start off with questions. Some of the questions I get when I'm discussing telehealth with clients are, well, can I trust it? Well, yeah, you can. Now, if you're going to use FaceTime or Skype, that's not really a trustworthy way to communicate very confidential information. And it's kind of glitchy sometimes because the technology, they didn't put in a significant amount of technology to make those things happen. So when you're doing telehealth, these telehealth platforms, one of which I know is excellent, is called Ootify, Ootify. Ootify has put in a significant amount of dollars to make sure that their platform is not glitchy, it's easy to use, and you can trust it because it's HIPAA compliant. And that's the next thing that people often ask. Is telehealth confidential? Yes, if it's done properly and if it's done in the right way. So if you are using a telehealth platform, like I think there's one called DoxyMe, there's something Ootify, there are all these other platforms. If you are using something that is meant for telehealth, it is HIPAA compliant and it is confidential. The chance of being like hacked into are significantly less than if you were to use something that's not HIPAA compliant, like FaceTime or Skype. So if your therapist is asking you to use FaceTime or Skype, ask them if there's another way that you can communicate with them, because that's not HIPAA compliant. The other question I get is, well, who provides telehealth? How do I find out? Who do I need to ask? Now, if you were to Google or go online and search for telehealth providers, you'll get a ton of results. And some of them are going to be these companies like Talkspace. Talkspace is super popular. Now, knowing about those providers and what level of care you're going to get, the quality of care you're going to get, you don't really sometimes get the best quality through Talkspace. However, if you're going to be going into any kind of a private practice, you can ask, and many private practice practitioners will do telehealth. And again, if you're using Ootify, it actually tells you who's available, how much they cost. You can get a therapist to talk to you right in that moment. If you're coming out of, an argument with your spouse or partner and you really want to talk to someone, you can go on there and it'll show you who's available and you get to pick them based on their profile. Like I said, in addition, most or many private practice clinicians like myself, we are very happy to do telehealth. Telehealth is not only easy and convenient for you as the client, it's also pretty easy and convenient for me. So it's a win-win on both sides. Another question that I get is, what if I want to see my therapist face-to-face sometimes? If I do telehealth, does that mean I can never do that? Well, if you're using something like Talkspace, yeah, you're never going to meet that therapist. If you are working with a private practice therapist, certainly you can schedule a face-to-face visit. The same thing with Ootify. If you wanted to schedule an office visit, you can do that. So you just want to make sure that no matter which telehealth platform you're using, you're aware of what your options are and what that platform can provide to you. Because sometimes it's nice to be able to sit in the same room with your therapist so that you can really take in what they're saying. There's something different about being right in front of another person that it feels like they get you. It feels like they're listening. It just feels a little bit different. So if you want to see your therapist face to face on occasion, depending on how you utilize your telehealth and who you're utilizing it with, you can absolutely do that. Now, how do you pay for telehealth? It kind of varies. It depends on what you're using, who you're seeing, and what their office policies are. But typically, if you're doing telehealth, they'll probably, like we, take credit cards electronically. So we can bill your credit card for the service. You don't have to hand anybody a check or hand anybody cash. The beauty of technology is that it's easy. You don't have to hand things over. You don't have to be there in person to get what you need. The other question I get is, oh my gosh, well, so how much does telehealth cost? Is it more expensive? Is it less expensive? How does that work? Well, depends on your clinician. Many clinicians charge their regular fee for doing telehealth just the same as if you were coming into the office. Some clinicians offer a slight discount if you want to do telehealth. Some people offer a significant discount if you're doing telehealth. And some people actually charge a little extra to do telehealth. It all kind of depends. So what's important again is to ask the questions and find out. Then you get to decide who you want to go with and what you want to do. Don't just assume that everyone is the same, because no one is the same. That goes for therapists. No therapist is the same. We all practice differently. We all have different fees. We all take insurance or not take insurance or kind of take insurance and do it in a special way. Everything is different. So please ask the questions. But the technology is there and it's really cool. So again, I'm Tracy Bevington. I am the founder and owner of Pacific Marriage and Family Therapy Network. I just want to recap that so far we've discussed what is telehealth and what are some of the most frequently asked questions about it. Now I'd like to go into the pros and the cons. So I'm going to start with the cons, because that's where everyone typically goes. It's like, oh, I can't do that because of blah, blah, blah. So one of the cons that comes up often about telehealth is, oh, I don't think anybody does it except through like Talkspace or something like that. And that there's a lot of truth to that. Not everybody does telehealth. However, many, many do, and many more are doing it day by day. So again, as long as you're asking and you know that that's something that's available to you, ask. You never know. It could totally work out that you can do your therapy over telehealth. But if you don't ask, you'll never know. Another con is about the systems being kind of glitchy or having bad connections. Now, even though a lot of these platforms invest a ton of money and a ton of effort into creating the best experience possible for their users, nothing is 100%. So yeah, might there be a glitch here and there? Possibly. But because the technology is so much better and always advancing, that doesn't happen as often. A lot of it depends on whether or not you're connected to Wi-Fi or if you are using your phone versus a laptop. So these are all things that we can work around. Just because it could be glitchy doesn't mean that, oh, I shouldn't do that or I can't do that. But if you try it and you don't like it, it's totally okay too. You can try telehealth, and if you don't like it, switch to regular therapy. But you never know until you try. Here's another con. Well, what happens when I can't see like my therapist's full reaction to things? especially if I'm doing just a phone call, or maybe I'm doing like a text or email something. I can't really get the full understanding. And maybe my therapist can't tell from me, like get the full understanding of me, because they can't see all of my mannerisms or all of the nonverbal cues that I'm getting. That's totally true. If you choose to do your telehealth through phone, text, or email. Now, if you're doing video, it's significantly better because you could see a portion of the person. It's not the entire person. Unless you want to set up your computer or your phone so that your therapist can see your whole body. Maybe you can see your therapist's whole body. All of this is an option and it's available to you. So the nonverbal cues that's not so much of a problem because of the amazing technology that we have available to us. Another con is that not all situations can be handled via telehealth. So, I don't know, maybe it's someone that is severely depressed and suicidal. That might be something better suited to face-to-face sessions. That's not necessarily something that can be left to telehealth. Now, again, if the suicidality or the suicidal ideation is well managed, then sure, telehealth could be workable. But it's not always the best course of action, depending on what's going on. Another con is, at least when you're working with a marriage family therapist, you can do telehealth, but that therapist has to be, if you're living in California, your therapist has to be registered or licensed in California. So you just want to be aware. But sometimes people think, oh, well, that limits who I can see, or that's a problem for me because I travel a lot. There are ways to get around those things. So the pros. This is the part that I really like. The pros of doing telehealth, the biggest one I've already said is it's quick and it's easy. Access is like unlimited. So as a mom, let's say, this could be super convenient because I have some time between when I finish my errands and I have to pick the kids up from school. And it's not enough time where I can drive to an office for an hour. So I got to drive there, park, go to my session for an hour. Then I got to get back in my car and then drive and go and pick up my kids from school. What's great about telehealth is you can drive to your kid's school, sit in the parking lot, and have your session, and it will end right when you have to pick the kids up. That's super cool. That's really convenient. So ease, convenient, and it's quick. Like you can schedule a telehealth session if your therapist is available. If you are in San Diego on vacation and you really want to have a session, you can do that. Have it over video, have it over phone, whatever. It's super convenient. Some other pros are it's cost effective. In many cases, the cost effectiveness comes from its convenience and its ease. There is less time driving, so you're not paying as much in gas. There is no paying for parking. There is kind of the non-tangible cost effectiveness of it's a lot less stressful when you don't have to squeeze in another appointment that is going to take an hour and also add on travel and add on all these other things. So it's very efficient. It's HIPAA compliant. The Board of Behavioral Sciences and CAMP, the California Association of Marriage Family Therapists, they're all saying telehealth is cool. You can do it. It's available. So that means it's private and it's confidential. That's just like being in the office, really. In many cases, also, insurance will cover it. Oh my gosh, they'll cover something. Yes, they will often cover telehealth. The other thing that is great about telehealth is, I've already mentioned this before, more and more therapists are doing it. So the access and the availability to do telehealth is there. So far we've talked about the pros and the cons. We've discussed some of the frequently asked questions. We've talked about what teletherapy or telehealth is. In closing, I'd just like to say that some of the things to remember if you want to engage in telehealth are: be aware of your own privacy. Just because you're on the phone doesn't mean that it's a good idea to be in the grocery store or shopping at Target while you're having therapy. So please be mindful. Find some space for yourself where you can have privacy, even if it's at home. If the kids are around, you don't necessarily want to have your telehealth or your teletherapy in the living room while the kids are sitting there watching TV or doing their homework. Find some place that's private. The other thing is, please, with telehealth, try not to do it while you're driving. It's very tempting. And having a phone call while driving, like a business call, that might be okay. But to talk about things that might emotionally charge you and get your nervous system into a place where you're not thinking clearly, that's not a good idea to have that kind of conversation while you're driving. So please be aware. Be safe. Make good choices. Be safe. But please take advantage of telehealth. Here at Pacific Marriage and Family Therapy Network, we have several therapists that do telehealth and are very open and happy to work with you. Also, again, there are several apps out there. The one that we particularly like is called Ootify, Ootify. It's an app and it's free. The app is free, and you get to choose your clinician from the app. Again, if you have any questions about what I've discussed so far, or you have any comments, if you'd like to be in contact with us, please click the link at the top. If you'd like to join our newsletter, please click the link at the top. If you would like to join us again for our next Facebook Live, I do this every Thursday at 1 p.m. I don't have a topic for next week yet, but I will keep you posted. So thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next week, Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific. Thank you.